Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday, July the 2nd. Just a reminder before I forget, tomorrow's a holiday. We have some holiday trading for the July 4th. The market closes early. So I haven't decided if I'm going to trade tomorrow. It just depends on how I feel. Usually it's kind of slow and choppy and not much going on. So I'm not sure if I'll trade tomorrow or not. Then, of course, no trading Thursday. There's markets only open for about 3 hours. Um, and then back to regular trading on Friday. So I may come in and trade Friday for sure. It just depends on if we go anywhere this weekend or not. But probably, and again, I may trade tomorrow. If I come in tomorrow, I'll do a chart lesson for at least the time I'm here and post it. But if there's no lesson, you'll know that I probably didn't come in, or I came in and there wasn't anything happening, so I just closed up shop and left. Um, so just want to give you a heads up on that in case there's no chart lesson tomorrow. As you can see, we started off with a nice trend up. It looked like it was going to be pretty strong, but we just found too much resistance. And then we had a huge sell-off, and there were some great moves in this sell-off if you were patient and waited on it. And we got a break here, tried to do a retest, didn't really get much lower, and then we kind of trended up the rest to the close. But this was the last trade I marked. The last trade I took was right before lunch, so I didn't even, I was done by this time. But there were some nice moves here, so I went ahead and marked these two and showed them to you. But let's go back and start at the beginning and show you what I saw this morning, and then work from there. And the opening trend was right off of those first couple of swings there. It looked like the high was going to be right in here, but this is one of those days, and we seem to see this. We weren't seeing this very much previously, but we seem to be seeing it a lot, where there's kind of a median line in these things, and you get on one side of that range or the other, or that channel or the other, and you see we were in the upper high part here, and then we traded down into the lower part down here before we reversed. I haven't seen a lot of that previously, but lately I've seen quite a bit of it. So you just have to be aware of it and trade it and go with what you see. So I'm marking it just to help people see it and learn to spot it, because it's there. And but let's talk about the trades. When I came in, prices were trending down here, and there really wasn't anywhere to get in. Then we reversed out of here. We had a failed second entry short. There was actually a short right here if you saw it and took it. I think it worked. I didn't like it unless you entered with a limit order, and you got a chance to do that. If you took the stop, I don't know if it worked or not. I didn't mark the trade. I should have, I guess, in green. The entry was 1650 on a stop, and you see it. Wait a minute. Yeah, 0650, and you see you wouldn't have got out on a stop, so a stop order. So the only way to enter that one was with a limit order, and you can see that it's not a real good setup. Let me just back out here. You can see that that's kind of a doji, and it is two legs back, but it didn't close on this low like you would like. So you were better off to wait for it to drop down and then drop a limit order in there and then see if you could get out. But I didn't like it because we're making a higher high and a higher low, and it looked like this was going to be this looked really bullish, and it looked like it was going to be a failed breakout. So I was expecting that, hey, we may catch a trap here, and I don't have the line on here. Let me put it on here. It'll probably make it a little easier to see, the reasons I didn't like this. There's too much support right there, and you can see that. And so even though we broke below, look, that one closed back inside, and that one closed back inside. So I was afraid that, at the very least, I was looking at the lows being down here, and there's not enough room. And you see that's right where it went to. So there wasn't enough room to get out. Even if it was right here, there wasn't enough room to get out. So I just didn't like it for that reason. It looked like it was going to probably set up for a trap, and sure enough it did. I didn't know we were going to trend up this strongly, but once you have the trap, you want to go long right there. It's a failed second entry short, and if you did get trapped there, when this bounced up and then this one ended as a doji, just exit that trade and wait and see what happens, and then you would have been ready for this trap right here. So a couple of different ways you could have handled that. Either you got to enter on a limit order that's enough to get out before these lows here, and if you didn't do that, then once these ended, you had to, you should have just exited, because it's obvious we were bouncing off these first couple of lines right there, and you can see that. Notice how we closed inside it. So, but turned out to be a great move up, and this really was the money maker today through the early morning. And then we had to pull back, second entry long here. Notice the new high, first entry long, pull back, second entry long. And this was another one because there's a lot of overlap in the dojis. I like to use a limit order here, and you see it did come back and fill it and then turn back up. But then you got a failed second entry short here, so I added on right here, and didn't get much on the runners. But with two sets, once we started making these dojis, I exited and still made me some pretty good money on those, by adding on right there. So still turned out pretty good. And then we pull back, and this was the one that came right off the trend line. I didn't like this setup, so you had to wait on this bar right here. And then when it broke higher, I liked using the limit order on this one. You could have gotten as much, you could have gotten at the high or a tick into it. And then it bounced pretty quickly, and easy scalp, but no big runners. They came back and took out the runners right there. And then I really didn't like entering here, because notice how each one of these breaks went just barely higher, and then you got all this overlap. So I was real hesitant to enter on this one, unless you could get in way back here near the line with a limit order, and it couldn't get filled. I dropped it in there, it never got filled. So I drew this one in green. I think you might have got enough. 17, nope, you would have been one tick short if you entered on a stop. So it's one of those where you had to get in with a limit order, and I doubt you would have got filled on that. So I know I didn't. So I doubt anybody else would have got filled unless your chart got you a little better entry that was a little bit lower. Just didn't like that. It was a first entry after just like a one tick fail, and that's a pretty bearish reversal bar. I was tempted to go short there, but there was no break yet, so I didn't. And then we made the double top and came down, and look, notice how we make a little lower high, but then you get this little trap right here and a second entry long. And again, because of the way that bar was, it would have been nice to fill with a limit order, but a limit order didn't get filled, so I dropped a stop right back, or a limit order. I put it at the top, and it did come back, and I got filled, and it went higher. But even with a stop, you would have, I'm pretty sure this was a good trade. Entry was 16.50, and you see it got just enough, and that's generally what you'll find if it's, but there's some strong resistance. So basically the key here was having enough to scalp out before you got back to these highs up here. And even then it came up a tick short from there. But I usually use the closes, and the last close was kind of right across there, and you can see that was kind of it. So you needed enough room. You need to be able to enter this with enough room to get out before you got to that high. And I didn't like anything coming back down. The bias is still up. We don't have a new high yet. You might have considered entering here, but I didn't like this one either because it's a first entry. I guess it really is a second entry now that I look at it, but I saw it as a first entry. It's a failed break lower, but notice how we didn't close on the high. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to mark this one in green because I was really tempted to take that one, but I just sat on it, and it would have worked. But I just sat on it, and it really does. Now that I look at it, I missed it. That's a first entry, and there's a little bit lower low there, but it didn't close on its high. This is one you probably would have wanted to drop a limit order in, and even if you went in there with a stop, as long as you kept your stop below there, it would have worked. But generally when you get a failed break like that, you want to see this thing close on its high or be real tiny where you can get in real close. And so I'm going to change that to green. But then you get a failed move down here, and it turns back up. And so you got to, and notice first entry, pull back, it's kind of it looks like a little trap right there. So, and it's really a short turns out to be a short trap. So I liked going long there, figuring we're probably going to make a new high this time, and we did. And because they really had people trapped out right here. That was a low that was lower than these last few lows across here. And it is two measured legs down. That was another thing I liked about entering here. There's leg one, and then you can see leg two, almost a perfect, it's really a perfect measured move. But you needed a trap of some kind, and we really had one there, and that's why I decided to go ahead and mark that in green. I didn't really notice this new high, or the fact that this high was higher here. So it is a second entry long. It's not a very pretty one, but based on our rules, there are several reasons you could have entered there. So I just, for some reason, I didn't like it at the time. I think it was the overlap, the fact that we did have a break, and I just wasn't sure, you know, after this trade, after taking a little bit of work to get out of that trade, I just wasn't sure about it. But then when we had the trap here, it felt pretty good that we'd get a new high, and we did. And then I circled this one in green. We got a failed break higher. We have the new high. We had a break of a trend line. We had a new high. But sometimes you'll get another leg that's equal to this whole move here. And notice this one went lower first and then went up. And a lot of times that traps people. I almost went long there. Had second thoughts about it. So that's a trap. Nice trap. It's a second entry short. You know there's room to get back to here. This thing just came on down, pulled back right at the trend line again. So another chance. This is a breakout pullback short, right off the trend line. There is some overlap here, so this is one, but if you use the limit order here, you probably didn't get filled. I just dropped a stop there because I felt like we were going to get another measured move down like this one at a minimum. So I was looking for a target of down here, and you can see we far surpassed that. This turned into be a nice downtrend. But no runners here unless you exited down here, and it was probably smart to exit in this overlap. Another chance to get in here right off. It's double top, triple top, right at the where you're expecting the resistance to be that used to be support, and you got a nice turn down. It was better to wait on this bar and wait on the break and then try to drop a limit order in there. And if you did that, even if you entered there with a stop, it was a good trade. And this could have easily closed on its low. But since it didn't, I used a limit order, and then boom, it was off down. And runners were good, and you had a chance to add on here if you wanted. I was done by this time, just managing my runners. And another chance to enter right here. This is kind of a breakout. You could have entered here. It was really better to enter here, and I think I meant to have that whole thing circled. And I really didn't. The only reason I liked entering here is because it's kind of a trap, but it closes a doji, and then you got three overlapping bars, and you see it broke out and pull back. But this is like a little breakout pullback short, so going short there was the place to go. And you can see it dropped on down really quickly. And then I drew this one in green because, again, it's not a very good setup, but there is a trap right here. You got your first entry. We weren't back to the EMA. We weren't back to the trend channel, but it broke higher and went lower, and that's the kind I like. So I probably would have used a stop order there, and it would have worked. You would have had to wait a few minutes and ride it out. But even if you didn't, if you had a bearish bar right here like that, it was okay probably to go short there. And then boom, it was off to the races because you didn't know really if this wasn't going to be the trend channel at that time. So generally that's what happens. You get overshoot and then you go out the other side. So this one was really iffy. You know, it's always easier to say after the fact that I would have taken that one, but I just don't know. That's why I drew it in green. I just don't know if I'd have taken that one or not. The fact that it broke higher above that double top and then turned down and went lower, I probably would have. Since that's a green bar, I probably would have dropped a limit order back in here, and so that would have barely ever been any heat on that trade, maybe a tick or two before it really started moving again. So, you know, I think I would have considered it. Whether or not I would have taken it's another thought. So, and that's all I marked. There's another two-legged correction here. Right off this lower trend line, a nice reversal bar, kind of similar to this setup here, except it moved on down pretty quickly. when it broke lower below that double bottom there and reversed, that's probably where I would have been exiting that trade, and so no big runners there. And then that was pretty much it. Another chance to short maybe over here, but it's real late in the day, so I didn't even look at that. So I'm a little late getting this done. I had to run out and run some errands, so I had to come back to do this today, and so that's why it's a little bit late getting it done. But that's what I saw today. I mean, we really spent from 9 o'clock until I'd say the downtrend started right here. So really from 9 to noon, there wasn't much happening. It just was slow, and it looked like it was going to be kind of like yesterday. It really was kind of like yesterday. We rallied up, went into the range, and then sold off in the afternoon. I mean, it's really the same thing today. But a good trading day. Depending on if you got hung up in this, you could easily get whipsawed. So, but the bias was still up until I'd say we had the failed break higher, and then you had to be careful right in here. So, but notice the lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, and so you can see the trend is down now, and it moved pretty good once it started going. It actually moved pretty good from right here. So I'm sure they trapped a lot of people right there. And like I said, I almost got trapped there myself and reconsidered it, and I'm glad I did, because then it gave me a chance to go short here. But if you did get caught in that, when it broke lower, you got to figure prices are coming back down here and will probably break out the low side, even if it fails and goes higher. So no setup here. You might have considered going long right there, but once you drew this trend line off this and drug it down, it was fitting so well, you got to figure there's probably a channel here, and we're below all the previous support. It would have worked if you'd taken that, and most breakouts that fail that set up right are good for at least a scalp, you know. But that's a pretty big move, and this is kind of a reversal pattern again. Notice it's a little different. It's not the double top type, but it's a failed break out of this above all these matching highs, and then a new low, and then a lower high, and that's a reversal pattern. And that's why I drew this one in green. This was a little more aggressive, and it could have been a long trap. You could have gotten trapped long to the long, or trapped to the long side, but by this time, I mean, it's pretty obvious that that's a trend line right there, and so you want to be taking that short, and you're looking for at least a leg like that move right there, and you can see we got a lot more than that. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Again, there may or may not be a chart lesson tomorrow, and definitely won't be one Thursday, and I'm not even sure about Friday at this point. Most likely I will be back in Friday unless we go out of town. So, but tomorrow is up in the air at this point. So if you don't see a video tomorrow, and you definitely won't see one Thursday, you'll know why. If you're in the U.S., have a great 4th of July. If you're overseas or trading someplace else, enjoy the day off. Don't fool with it, more than likely. It's usually not worth fooling with, but definitely Wednesday's not worth fooling with. But tomorrow, there might, half a day. We trade through 12:15 Central Time, so there's, I'm usually done by noon anyway, so there may be a chance, there may be enough movement to be worth trading tomorrow, so you just have to see. But I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.